Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: new bunkers, secretive pit production facilities, and a silence broken in the Chinese desert. As Washington warns of a nuclear revival at Lop Nor, the U.S. prepares its own response. With the Winter Olympics underway, one rising star is Chinese-American figure skater Alyssa Liu. From being spied on by China ahead of the 2022 Winter Games to retiring at the young age of 16 to winning gold in a stunning comeback. Her father joins us to share what makes an Olympian.
I'm so happy just to see her skate so well on the Olympic ice, and everybody's so thrilled.
A new report warns Chinese state-backed hackers are ramping up efforts to target U.S. power grids, water systems, and other critical infrastructure. American automakers on edge as President Trump welcomes Chinese car makers to set up shop in the U.S. We have what they're most worried about.
Now, if they want to come in and build a plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors, that's great. I love that. Let China come in, let Japan come in.
Before we dive into today's news, here's a message from our sponsor. As we report every day, global markets are becoming more uncertain. China's growing economy and growing tensions with the U.S. are reshaping the financial landscape, and China is buying gold at record rates to diversify its foreign reserves and decrease its reliance on the U.S. dollar. It isn't just countries that can use gold to protect their wealth, it's individuals as well. That's why we believe in protecting what's real. Physical gold and silver from American Hartford Gold offers stability when markets turn unpredictable. Unlike paper assets, these are tangible stores of value that have weathered economic turmoil, political instability, and inflation for centuries. American Hartford Gold holds an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of 5-star reviews from satisfied customers. You can have gold and silver delivered right to your home or stored safely in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And right now, when you call and mention China in Focus, you could get up to $15,000 in free silver with your first purchase. Call 855-403-1118 or text China to 65532. That's China to 65532 or call 855-403-1118. You can also click the link in the description down below. Protect what you've earned, because in uncertain times, truth and value still matter. New U.S. intelligence shows Beijing may have broken a decades-long silence at its Lop Nor test site in northwest China. Meanwhile, fresh satellite analysis shows nuclear facilities expanding in southwestern China. But as the New START treaty expires, the response from Washington is shifting from monitor to a potential return to nuclear testing of its own.
Recent satellite imagery reveals a massive expansion of nuclear facilities in Sichuan province, China. The expansion includes new bunkers, ramparts, and a double-fence facility whose design resembles pit production facilities. Experts say China has been rapidly building or upgrading nuclear weapons facilities since 2019. Thomas Denano, Under-Secretary of State, accuses China of secretly conducting nuclear explosive tests at the Lop Nor test site in Xinjiang, dating back to June 22, 2020. Assistant Secretary of State Christopher Yar echoed the claim on Tuesday. Here he is at a Hudson Institute event.
There is very little possibility, I would say, that it is anything but an explosion, a singular explosion. So it's not consistent with sort of the ripple fire explosion that you get in mining. It's also entirely not consistent with an earthquake. It is quite consistent with what you would expect from a nuclear explosive test.
The challenge is detecting the tests. Officials say China is muffling the seismic signature through decoupling, which involves detonating devices in massive underground cavities, making a nuclear blast look like a minor earthquake. Ben Dando, head of seismology and verification at NORSAR, said they can't confirm or deny whether a nuclear test has taken place. But for Washington, the technicality matters less than the strategic threat.
If the United States' adversaries were able to test at some yield that we couldn't detect, while we maintained a strict zero means zero policy, that the United States would be living at an intolerable disadvantage.
Beijing has dismissed these claims as groundless fabrications. But as the New START treaty expires, Washington is no longer just focused on monitoring. It wants to make sure it doesn't fall behind. According to the Pentagon's estimate, China had more than 600 nuclear warheads by the end of 2024 and is on track to have 1,000 by 2030.
As the president has said, the United States will return to testing on a, quote, equal basis. But equal basis doesn't mean we're going back to Ivy Mike style atmospheric testing.
So while the era of massive atmospheric mushroom clouds is over, the era of low-yield underground testing may be returning.
What makes an Olympian? With the Winter Olympics happening in Italy, one rising star is Chinese-American figure skater Alyssa Liu. Fresh off her gold medal last week, she's now in the bid in the singles, just placing third. From being spied on by China ahead of the 2022 Winter Games to retiring at the young age of 16 to winning gold in a stunning comeback. What makes an Olympian? Joining us from Milan, Italy is her father, Arthur Liu. Arthur Liu, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
First, talk to us about what was it like watching your daughter live at the Olympics?
It is an amazing experience. As a parent, it's just, I'm so happy just to see her skate so well on the Olympic ice. And everybody is so thrilled. I have all my 4 other children here cheering for her. I have other extended family members here understand cheering for her. So it's just a really great experience.
What was that journey like? Because now, she's won gold. She just placed third in the women's singles. She, could have a chance there as well. And even her coach said this is unheard of, having that time off and then coming back. What is it like now? Is it different in terms of how she's competing? Is she maybe more in control? What's it like?
Well, it's quite different. I think this comeback for her is all on her own terms.
On that note, many are commenting on the sense of freedom or even lightness in her performance here. Talk to us a little bit more about her personality. Sounds like she's quite driven.
Yes, she's very driven. She's actually very competitive, but medals, placement in competitions don't really matter to her that much. Her focus was to do 2 main good programs.
That's awesome. I want to zoom out a bit here because many are commenting on your parenting skills, that you must have raised your children very well. You have a pretty unique story. You raised them for a pretty long time as a single dad of, I guess, 5 children now, right, in California. You had your own journey coming to the United States, basically living the American dream or fulfilling that. Talk to us a bit more about your background and what that was like.
Sure. I was born and raised in China. In the spring of 1989, I organized all the demonstrations in Guangzhou. So I organized a lot of demonstrations, hunger strikes in front of the provincial government building, and we protested after the Tiananmen Square massacre. And then, of course, I became one of the most wanted students. I was actually the first #1 wanted student in South China. But fortunately, I was able to escape from China. I went to Hong Kong first and then came to the United States as a political refugee.
I want to just touch in very lightly. So when you were organizing these protests in China, what were they for? Democracy, I assume, right? And then what was that like then coming to the United States?
Well, the protests and demonstrations were for democracy in China. The Chinese Constitution guarantees that the Chinese people have the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, a lot of freedom, but we had none. So we wanted the freedom to speak. And I want people to feel free to think, to imagine, and to speak, and not be persecuted.
Actually, ahead of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, the Justice Department and FBI said that China actually sent individuals to track and target you and your family, including her, ahead of the Olympics. Talk to us about what was Beijing's motivation? Were you afraid for her?
Well, because of my background, because I was wanted by the Chinese government back in 1989, and after I came to America, I also continued to organize protests in front of the Chinese consulate in San Francisco, some protests and hunger strikes in front of the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. The Chinese government never let me go and continue to spy on me. And before the Winter Olympic Games in 2022, I was, I got a phone call from somebody who claimed to be from the U.S. Olympic Committee and wanted copies of my passport and Alisa's passport. And then the FBI informed me that the Chinese government is spying on me. And of course, I was concerned about Alisa going to China to compete.
Speaking of Alisa, very quickly though, any plans for her after the Winter Olympics? Has she hinted at anything?
Well, yeah, I think she has hinted that she will continue to skate. That's great. That's great. I think she has a talent. She really has a gift in skating. That's the reason I spent so much time and money on her to develop that talent, to develop that gift, so that she can share with people on the planet.
I mean, I think Alisa's a great example of her success and yours as well through her. So Arthur Liu, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
U.S. critical infrastructure is under attack, and the threat is growing by the day. A new report released Tuesday shows Chinese state-sponsored hackers are targeting everything from power grids to oil and gas facilities. It's raising fresh concerns about cybersecurity at home and abroad. According to Dragos, a cybersecurity firm that specializes in protecting energy, water, and other critical infrastructure, 3 new hacker groups emerged last year. They're part of a growing list of entities trying to break into critical U.S. systems. One group, called Volt Zeit, is linked to Beijing-backed Volt Typhoon. Dragos says the group isn't after secrets or intellectual property. It wants to disrupt and tamper with control systems and take systems down. Another new Chinese group called Azurite is focused on gaining access to engineering networks, including defense and utilities like gas and oil. They have stolen sensitive documents from organizations in the U.S., Europe, and the Asia Pacific. Experts say these attacks show how difficult it is to defend critical infrastructure in today's digital age. In 2024, then FBI Director Christopher Wray warned about the growing number of attacks from China on U.S. critical infrastructure. NTD reached out to the FBI for comment on the cybersecurity report, but didn't hear back before airtime. A comment that's putting some U.S. lawmakers on edge. President Trump says he would welcome Chinese car makers building factories here in the United States.
If they want to come in and build the plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors, that's great. I love that. Let China come in, let Japan come in. They are.
The Financial Times reported that U.S. auto executives were spooked by Trump's comments. They are concerned about the prospect of cutthroat competition from Chinese rivals. Chinese automakers are often supported by state subsidies and can sell vehicles at much lower prices. Industry consultants report a surge in inquiries from North American automakers seeking advice on whether to compete with Chinese companies or partner with them. Nicole Walton is the president and CEO of HM Manufacturing. She says she's hearing mixed reactions from a few mid-sized U.S. automakers.
First off, it's already pretty difficult to find skilled labor here and to make competitive components as well as cars. So I think it's well received in a way, and I think it just depends what it would be about. So we have to be very careful about how we go about it.
Walter says protecting American workers is critical.
We just want to make sure that if we do have foreign and Chinese automotive companies come, that they are using the U.S. manufacturing base as well, and not just bringing in completely assembled autos, and then we don't have anything to do with it.
The U.S. is the world's second largest auto market. Right now, tariffs are a key barrier keeping Chinese cars out. President Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on imported automobiles, and Biden imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. Last year, China produced about 1/3 of the world's cars. Now, access capacity and intense competition at home are pushing Chinese automakers to expand into global markets. Still, uncertainty remains for Chinese automakers. An executive at a leading Chinese EV company told the Financial Times that building a factory requires long-term planning, but Trump's policies can change quickly. China is under scrutiny in the Lone Star State. Texas is suing TP-Link Systems, a California-based maker of Wi-Fi routers. It accuses the company of concealing its ties to Beijing. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the case, which Texas says has potentially exposed American users to hackers.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announced the lawsuit yesterday. He alleges deceptive marketing practices. Paxton first began investigating Wi-Fi router maker TP-Link in October 2025. Governor Greg Abbott has since prohibited state employees from using TP-Link products. TP-Link was founded in China in 1996. The company says it restructured in 2024, splitting into TP-Link Systems and TP-Link Technologies, which serves mainland China, and claims the two are no longer affiliated. Devices sold in the U.S. are labeled Made in Vietnam. But Paxton alleges those labels obscure a supply chain deeply entrenched in China, with nearly all components sourced there before final assembly in Vietnam. The lawsuit argues those ties leave the company vulnerable to Chinese Communist Party counter-espionage and national security laws, which require Chinese companies and citizens to assist state intelligence efforts, including providing foreign user data upon request. The complaint also says firmware vulnerabilities in TP-Link hardware have already exposed millions of consumers to serious cybersecurity risks. Paxton says the devices function as an open window for Chinese-sponsored threat actors, not the secure doorway consumers expect. The suit seeks up to $10,000 for each violation of Texas's Deceptive Trade Practices Act, or up to $250,000 per violation if the affected consumer is 65 or older. The case follows a House Select Committee on the CCP hearing last year, where retired NSA cybersecurity expert Rob Joyce linked TP-Link devices to the Salt Typhoon hacking campaign, targeting U.S. telecom companies including Verizon and AT&T. Joyce urged lawmakers to eliminate TP-Link's footprint in the United States. TP-Link says it is headquartered in Irvine, California, operates as an independent American company, and that no government, including Beijing, has ownership or control over its products or user data. TP-Link held more than 36% of the U.S. consumer router market in 2024, meaning a ban could rival the 2019 Huawei crackdown as one of the largest removals of Chinese telecom equipment from the U.S. market. Paxton has described the lawsuit as part of a coordinated series of actions against CCP-aligned companies. In December, his office filed privacy lawsuits against Hisense and TCL, accusing them of selling television viewers' data without consent. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up, Peru's Congress oust President Jose Harry over China links. It's over a scandal involving secret meetings with a Chinese businessman. A congressional commission says India is well positioned to take over part of China's role in global supply chains, and that it's in America's interest to support that shift. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. President Trump announcing the first phase of a sweeping trade deal with Japan. Japan is one of America's main allies when it comes to countering Beijing.
President Trump has announced 3 new projects with Japan, the first stage of a trade deal worth more than $500 billion. The president declaring the agreement officially underway yesterday. He says Japan is moving forward with major investments in the United States worth a total of $36 billion. Among the first projects, a natural gas power facility in Ohio. That's according to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who says it will be capable of generating 9.2 gigawatts of electricity. Another project is aimed at expanding crude oil exports from the Gulf of America near Texas. Lutnick estimates the facility will export between $20 and $30 billion worth of crude oil annually. The president has credited his tariffs for helping secure the agreement, saying the scale of the project is so large it could not have been done without them.
Peru's Congress has ousted President Jose Herri. He had been in office for just 4 months. Lawmakers removed him over a scandal involving undisclosed meetings with a Chinese businessman. The move extends a cycle of political upheaval that has gripped Peru for much of the past decade.
Señor José Enrique Herri Ore han sido aprobadas.
Peru's Congress has voted to remove President Jose Herri just 4 months into his term and the country's third president in a row to be ousted from office. 75 lawmakers backed his ouster, with 24 opposed and 3 abstaining. Herri has said he will respect the outcome of the vote. He became president in October after Congress unanimously removed his predecessor, Dina Boluarte, amid corruption scandals and growing anger over rising crime. With no vice president in place, Herri was next in the line of succession as head of Congress. The scandal that led to his removal Tuesday began last month, dubbed Chifagate, a local name for Chinese restaurants. Herri was filmed arriving at a restaurant late at night, wearing a hood to meet with Chinese businessman Jiwa Yang, who owns stores and a concession for an energy project. The meeting was not publicly disclosed. In his defense before lawmakers in January, he denied committing any, quote, irregular acts during the meeting.
I reiterate, there has been no irregular consent, no illicit consent in the meeting, but rather a circumstantial conversation in which Mr. President, the topic of the Peru-China Friendship Day, to be held on February 1st of this year, was touched upon.
With general elections set for April 12, yet another interim leader will take over. The current head of Congress, Fernando Rospigliosi, is next in line, but has declined the role. A vote by lawmakers to elect a new congressional leader is expected on Wednesday. That person would automatically assume the interim presidency. April's race for a more permanent leader is crowded, and according to a recent Ipsos poll, many Peruvians remain undecided.
A congressional commission says India is in the best position to replace a significant portion of China's dominance in global supply chains. And the commission says it's in America's best economic and national security interest to help India achieve that. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports on the hearing held Tuesday.
Today's hearing addresses the critical role of India in U.S.-China competition.
In a hearing titled India, China, and the Balance of Power in the Indo-Pacific, the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission heard from experts to see where India fits in when it comes to competing with China. Commissioner Jonathan Stivers says India is the best option right now to replace a significant share of China's role in global supply chains.
With rising national security concerns and a slowing economy in China, companies are seeking to diversify their supply chains out of the country.
Stivers says India has a dynamic entrepreneurial spirit and a strong STEM pipeline for high-skilled workers.
Perhaps more importantly, India's democratic system and adherence to the rule of law create the underlying conditions for fair and transparent commerce.
However, India faces a difficult balancing act with China, weighing economic security against the needs of industrial development.
India is a top supplier of our generic drugs, yet India relies extensively on China for the pharmaceutical ingredients and key startup materials.
China also accounted for 16% of India's total imports, and these figures highlight the fact that China, for India, is not just a marginal trading partner, but it is a system-scale supplier whose inputs are deeply embedded in Indian production.
Over the last 2 decades, Indian policymakers have gone from seeing China as a potential enabler to more of an obstruction in achieving India's objectives.
Stivers says a strong and economically vibrant India is in the national interest of the U.S., especially as strategic competition with China intensifies.
India's scale, demographic, economic, military makes it the only country in Asia with a potential to serve as a long-term counterweight to China's regional dominance.
The need for transparency with pharmaceutical ingredients was also raised.
When I buy a T-shirt, I can find out where the cotton was made. I can find out where the labor was, the carbon footprint. When I put a pill in my mouth, I have no idea where it's from.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For on-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.